The American blacksmith trade survived the rise of the factory in the 1860s. It survived the decline of the working horse in the 1920s. It survived the Great Depression of the 1930s. It survived the post-war industrial transformation of the 1950s and 60s. It survived the offshoring of American manufacturing in the 1980s and 90s. It survived the rise of cheap, imported metalwork from China and other countries through the 2000s. It survived the financial crisis of 2008 and the pandemic of 2020. The blacksmith trade has not had a sustained period of negative employment in any decade of the last 200 years. A senior working blacksmith in 1950 earned more than the average accountant in his county. A senior working blacksmith in 2020 earns more than the average accountant in his county. The pattern has held for 150 years with remarkable stability. The trade is genuinely recession-proof in a way most American work has never been. And the American school system has quietly removed it from the curriculum almost entirely. The young person growing up in rural Pennsylvania, Ohio, or Indiana today has likely never met a working blacksmith, despite the trade still operating in nearby counties. The information about the trade has been quietly walled off from the very people who would benefit most from knowing it. Welcome to Forgotten Trades Vault. Before we open this vault, hit subscribe so the next archive finds its way to you. The archive opens in 1874 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. In 1874, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania was the densest concentration of working blacksmiths in the United States. The county had been settled by Pennsylvania German immigrants from the early 1700s onward. Those immigrants had brought a deeply embedded metalworking tradition from the Rhineland and the Palatinate regions of Germany. The Pennsylvania German blacksmiths were known across the colonies for their skill, their patience, and the quality of their finished work. By the time of the American Revolution, Lancaster County was already producing blacksmith work that supplied much of the eastern seaboard. The Pennsylvania long rifle, the Conestoga wagon, and many of the iron tools that opened the American frontier all originated in Lancaster County shops. By 1874, the county supported more than 400 working blacksmith shops across its farms, villages, and small towns. The shops served a working agricultural and industrial economy that depended on metalwork for nearly every productive activity. A working blacksmith built and repaired plows for the local farms. He shod horses and oxen for the working teams. He built wagon hardware, gate hinges, latches, hooks, chains, and tools. He hammered out kitchen knives, garden implements, and household ironwork. He built specialty tooling for the local machine shops, tanneries, and lumber mills. He restored broken equipment that no factory in the country was set up to repair. The blacksmith was the maintenance professional of 19th century American life. He was also the artistic metalworker of his community. The wrought iron railings, the decorative hardware, the church bell mountings, and the cemetery gates of every American small town were the work of local blacksmiths. Many of those pieces still stand today, more than a century after they were forged. Every settled town in the United States had at least one working blacksmith by the time of the Civil War. Larger towns supported 5, 10, or 20 shops. By the federal census of 1900, the United States supported more than 200,000 working blacksmiths across the country. The trade had grown alongside the country itself. The figure included full-time, independent, shop owners and journeymen, employees in larger operations. It also included factory blacksmiths working in railroad yards and steel mills, plus rural blacksmiths who combined the trade with farming or other work. The trade was woven through nearly every sector of the American economy at the turn of the 20th century. The Industrial Revolution did not kill it. The mass production of agricultural equipment by John Deere, International Harvester, and other major manufacturers actually increased the work available to independent blacksmiths. The factory built the new equipment. The blacksmith repaired, modified, and customized what the factory had built. A John Deere plow shipped from Moline, Illinois, in 1910 arrived at a farm in Iowa or Nebraska or Kansas as a stock product. The local blacksmith adjusted the plow for the specific soil conditions of the region. He repaired the moldboard when it cracked and replaced the share when it wore out. He also fabricated custom hitches and accessories that the factory did not supply. The factory and the local blacksmith worked together to keep American agriculture running. The arrival of the automobile and the tractor in the early 20th century reduced demand for horse-related work, but increased demand for metalwork of every other kind. Every early American automobile required hand-forged hardware, custom brackets, and specialty fittings. Every tractor came with attachment points that local blacksmiths modified for specific farm conditions. Every early aircraft required hand-forged engine mounts and fittings. The decline of the working horse population from roughly 20 million animals in 1915 to fewer than per million animals by 1960 did displace some blacksmith specialties. But the trade absorbed the transition and continued to grow in other directions. Architectural ironwork, ornamental metalwork, restoration work, and specialty manufacturing all expanded as the horse-related work contracted. The early 20th century country club, the prosperous urban townhouse, and the grand civic building all required custom ironwork that local blacksmiths produced on commission. By 1950, the United States still supported more than 50,000 working blacksmiths across the broader trade. The trade had reorganized but had not collapsed. The federal census tracked the trade continuously through this period, and the numbers showed remarkable stability across decades that destroyed many other American working-class trades. The blacksmith adapted, specialized, and survived. A senior working blacksmith in Lancaster County in 1950 earned between $5,000 and $9,000 a year. The median American household income that year was about $3,300. The blacksmith outearned the average grade school teacher in his town. He outearned the local newspaper editor. He outearned the average accountant. He outearned most of the customers whose work he completed. He owned his shop, his anvil, his forge, his tools, and his customer relationships. He answered to no one above him. He set his own hours, took his own customers, and produced his own work at his own pace. He took apprentices when he chose to and trained them at his own pace. He retired when he was ready, often passing his shop to a son or a senior apprentice. The trade had a real training pipeline through this period. Most American blacksmiths learned through family or local apprenticeship. The Pennsylvania German tradition emphasized intergenerational transmission of skill. A boy started helping in the shop at 12 or 13 and was producing serious work by 16 or 17. By his early 20s, he could open his own shop or step into the family shop as a full working partner. The training cost the apprentice nothing. He earned modest wages from the start, working alongside the master, slowly absorbing the patterns of the trade across years of practical experience. The high school vocational programs of the early and mid-20th century included blacksmithing among their offerings in agricultural and industrial states. By 1950, more than 1,000 American high schools taught at least introductory blacksmithing as part of their broader metal shop curriculum. Then came the cultural shift that this channel has documented across so many other American trades. In 1963, the Vocational Education Act began redirecting federal vocational funding. In 1972, the Higher Education Amendments massively expanded federal student loans for four-year colleges. A generation of American guidance counselors was trained in the new framework that emphasized college over trade. The blacksmith, the farrier, the saddler, and the other traditional metal and animal trades simply disappeared from the high school career counseling vocabulary. By the late 1970s, the federal vocational education funding system had effectively defunded most traditional craft trade programs. The high school blacksmithing programs were among the first to be cut. Schools that had taught blacksmithing for 50 or 60 years closed their forges, sold the anvils, and converted the shop floor into computer, labs, or storage space. The required academic mathematics class needed only desks and a chalkboard. The blacksmithing program needed a forge, an anvil, ventilation, coal storage, and a certified instructor. The budget pressure favored the cheap option. The cultural pressure favored the four-year college path. By the year 2000, fewer than 30 American public high schools still offered blacksmithing as a structured program. By 2020, fewer than 10 remained. The trade survived, but the high school pipeline was effectively cut. Who benefited from this rearrangement? The universities benefited as the federal student loan portfolio grew to its current $1.7 trillion. The blacksmith was not in the brochure. The cost was paid by the rural communities that lost their working metal workers. A small town that had supported a working blacksmith for 150 years now had to send its repair work to distant specialty shops. The cost was paid by the architectural and ornamental ironwork market, which depends on skilled blacksmiths to produce custom railings, gates, hardware, and decorative metalwork. Architects and interior designers across the country routinely report long waiting lists at the few remaining custom architectural blacksmith shops. A project that would have taken 3 months to commission in 1960 can now take a year or more. The cost was paid by the historic preservation sector, which depends on traditional blacksmithing techniques to restore the wrought iron and hand-forged hardware of older buildings. The cost was paid by the small specialty manufacturers who could not find skilled metalworkers to staff their shops. The trade did not die. The trade was simply removed from public mention while the actual demand kept growing. Now open the archive on the present. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks blacksmiths within a broader category of metal workers and farriers in 2024. The reported median annual wage for the broader category sits between $40,000 and $55,000. These general numbers include first-year apprentices, part-time workers, and laborers along with senior journeymen. Step outside the general average and into the specialty segments, and the picture changes dramatically. A working architectural blacksmith with an established reputation commonly earns between $80,000 and $140,000 a year. The architectural sector has been growing steadily since the late 1990s. High-end residential construction has consistently driven demand for custom ironwork, with affluent homeowners commissioning custom railings, gates, fireplace tools, and decorative hardware for their homes. The hospitality sector, particularly hotels and restaurants seeking distinctive interiors, has also driven steady demand. A specialist in custom architectural ironwork builds gates, railings, balconies, and ornamental hardware for high-end residential and commercial projects. That kind of specialist regularly earns between $100,000 and $180,000 annually. A specialist in artistic and sculptural blacksmithing can build a reputation that supports commissions at premium rates, with established artists clearing $200,000 and beyond. A specialist in historic preservation blacksmithing, restoring hand-forged hardware and architectural ironwork on heritage buildings, can bill between $100 and $300 an hour on detailed work. A toolmaker and edge tool specialist producing hand-forged chisels, axes, knives, and specialty tools can build a national or international customer base operating from a small rural shop. The Artist Blacksmith Association of North America, founded in 1973, has helped lead the recovery of the craft side of the trade across the last 50 years. The association maintains training programs, conferences, and continuing education for working blacksmiths across the country. The annual association conferences draw working professionals and serious students from across North America. Regional guilds in nearly every state run their own monthly meetings, demonstrations, and skill exchanges. The trade has built its own informal training network in the absence of formal school programs. The work is genuinely recession-proof. The recession of 2008 did not idle a single working architectural blacksmith for long. The pandemic of 2020 actually increased demand for custom residential metalwork. The arrival of large language models in 2022 and 2023 did not threaten a single working American blacksmith. A language model can describe the temperature ranges for forging mild steel. It cannot stand at the anvil and feel the difference between steel that needs another 5 seconds in the fire and steel that is ready to take the hammer. The hand that draws the bar, sets a band, and dresses the finished piece is still the only tool that does this work. The path back into the trade is shorter than the path through any four-year college program. The American Bladesmith Society and the Artist Blacksmith Association of North America at ABAN. .org both maintain directories of working shops and instructional programs. The Penland School of Craft in North Carolina and the John C. Campbell Folk School in North Carolina run intensive blacksmithing workshops. The Center for Metal Arts in Pennsylvania and the Touchstone Center for Crafts in Pennsylvania also operate respected programs. Many community colleges offer introductory blacksmithing courses. most working blacksmiths learn through a combination of intensive workshops, direct apprenticeship with a working smith, and years of focused independent practice. The training path is more flexible than most American skilled trades, allowing serious students to combine workshops, apprenticeship, and self-study around their existing responsibilities. A serious side trade blacksmith can build skills and customer relationships across 2 or 3 years while holding a primary job. By the time he decides to go full-time, he has equipment, customers, and a portfolio of finished work to show. The entry cost for a basic home forge setup runs between $2,000 and $10,000 in tools and equipment. A serious student can be producing small commissioned work within 6 to 12 months of dedicated study. The entry wage for a new working blacksmith apprentice in 2025 sits between $35,000 and $45,000 a year. Within 3 to 5 years, a blacksmith who specializes in architectural, artistic, or restoration work routinely earns between $70,000 and $150,000. Within 10 years, a specialty blacksmith with the right reputation and clientele clears $200,000 regularly. The Lancaster County tradition is still alive, with working shops scattered across the rural Pennsylvania landscape. Similar traditions persist in rural Ohio, Indiana, North Carolina, Kentucky, and across the western states. The trade has been kept alive by the people who refuse to let it die, but the trade is not dead. The trade was never the problem. The curriculum was the problem. And every curriculum can be revisited by the person standing at the fore, outearned. If this vault opened something for you, leave a comment with the trade you wish your school had taught you instead of college prep. The next vault holds a trade that built every comfortable piece of furniture in every American home for 200 years. It still pays a strong middle-class wage today, and the American school system removed it from the curriculum almost entirely. The next vault opens soon,